Eagles Entertainment.
Eagle Eye in the Sky is fueled by Gatorade, the official sports drink of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Anything that move, I don't care who it is. Let's go. Give me everything you got. Play fast, play hard. Let's beat these boys tonight in their house. It's party time. It's party time. Fran, here we go. Touchdown!
You are listening to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. Now here's your host, Fran Duffy.
That's right of the week, and while the Eagles fall in the desert, the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade, continues. I'm Fran Duffy, and as always, I think we've got a great show for you here on episode number 296. At the top of this week's show, we've got Chalk Talk, where I chat with Greg Cosell about the Eagles and their loss against the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday afternoon. What did the tape tell us? How did Jalen Hurts look in his second start? Who stood out on defense? We will discuss it all and look ahead to next week's matchup against the Dallas Cowboys in Chalk Talk. Before we get going with that segment, two quick things that I just want to quickly hit on. If you haven't yet, please jump on to Apple Podcasts, leave us a rating, leave us a comment. It's the best way to throw us your support. If you're an Eagles fan, we talk Eagles all season long, all year long right here on the show. And if you throw us a comment on Apple, it really helps make this podcast more visible to more people and therefore makes me happy. So consider it a holiday gift by jumping on, throwing a rating, throwing a comment up there. If you ask a question, we will always answer it here on the show. Also, for those of you who are into the NFL draft, I'm telling you, please go check out the Journey to the Draft podcast as well. We were over there twice a week, every single week, talking NFL draft, talking prospects, every single week. Myself, Ben Fennell, Dane Brugler, Ross Tucker. We are really kicking into high gear. We've been going all season long. Last week, we had a special guest in Dan Orlovsky, an ESPN analyst. You can get that wherever podcasts can be found. Thanks so much to everybody who has thrown us their support on both of those podcast channels. All right, that's being said, let's dive into our show right now. It's time for Chalk Talk.
Let's get down to business. It's time for Chalk Talk.
Well, excited to welcome back here to the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast for some Chalk Talk, my friend Greg Cosell. Greg, welcome back, man. Welcome to Week 16.
I know. Hey, I'm thrilled, Fran. You know what? I know we're talking about an Eagles loss, but I got to say it was a really fun, entertaining game, and I thought there were a lot of good things.
Well, obviously, a lot of the big things that people want to hear about will be with the rookie quarterback, Jalen Hurts, making his first start on the road, his second start overall. Big picture takeaways from Jalen Hurts in this game.
My big picture takeaways, I thought he played really, really well. We saw the poise and composure again. We saw pocket efficiency. We saw design runs, second reaction scrambles. I thought he was once again decisive with his reads and his throws. And I thought what was really kind of interesting, given that he didn't do this at Oklahoma. And when I was watching the tape, I was thinking, God, that's pretty impressive. I thought that he got the ball out with timing and rhythm. His ball placement was consistently precise, much better than his tape showed at Oklahoma. So I was overall impressed with his performance.
Yeah, I thought we saw some really good things. And to me, look, there are two big aspects, I think, when you're looking at Jalen Hurts, and especially from the structure of this game. Number one, I thought last week against New Orleans, the script of the game, the flow of the game really played into his favor. Right, we saw,
of course,
we saw the turnover in plus territory. You had the big 82-yard run by Miles Sanders. The Eagles jump up 17-0. I think with this game, they jump into a 16-0 hole. Right, the first couple of drives were not good. It was a rough start for the Eagles offense. So seeing him play the way that he did, coming out of that 16-0 hole, for sure was something that really kind of take away and really like what I saw. You still saw the ability to extend plays and make plays outside of structure, both with his arm and with his legs. There were a couple really good scrambles where he hit Zach Ertz for big chunks, certainly where he took off on fourth down to move the chains, where he ran into the end zone for a touchdown. Those were all good plays, and we expect to see those from Jalen Hurts. The step I thought we saw this week was his trust and his ability to make some anticipation throws on isolation routes outside the numbers.
Couldn't agree more.
To me, like that, I think there are a couple different levels of anticipation and what you're looking for from a young quarterback, and making anticipation throws in traffic in the middle of the field, a little bit different than making one outside the numbers on an isolation route. But I think, again, showing things that he did not show at Oklahoma and at Alabama, I don't remember seeing too many throws like that from Jalen Hurts in college. And I think that's certainly a positive sign, certainly for his development moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, some of those throws are spot throws based on the route concept.
Yep. Right.
Like, for instance, the The 39-yarder to Jeffrey, which he threw really early, and obviously Kirkpatrick fell down, which made the play better. It made the run after catch. But that was a spot throw based on the route. But the point is, in the cauldron of the game, he made that throw, and he made it at the right time. I thought, even though it was a second reaction play, I thought the Ward 4-yard TD on 4th and 3 was also a great anticipation throw off design movement left. The play design, to me, was a speed out by Ward from the field slot.
One
and
replay.
Ward made his route adjustment, but Hurts threw that with anticipation. Now, certain things happened in the game that, I think helped the Eagles. I mean, you're calling a give-up screen to Watkins, and it goes for a 32-yard touchdown. And that obviously helped things a lot. But that's separate from how Jalen Hurts played, because, as you know, I always isolate the quarterback from the things that actually happen in the game. And I thought if you isolate his play, he played at a pretty high level for a quarterback in his second start, down 16-0.
The one play, I would say, if we're going to talk like negatives and areas of growth, I talked about the anticipation outside the numbers and how that differs from anticipation in traffic in the middle of the field. And I think that there was one good example of that late in the game. It was, I believe, the second to last drive. The Eagles had moved the ball into the red zone, and it was the first of 2 consecutive sacks that got the Eagles out of scoring range, and then they ended up turning the ball over on downs. He's working to his left. The middle linebacker, Jordan Hicks, he opens to that side. The whole thing was designed for him in rhythm turn and hit Alshon Jeffrey over the middle of the field in rhythm, and he just didn't, for whatever reason, didn't pull the trigger, tucks the ball, and takes the sack. Those are the kind of plays from a processing standpoint that you just want to see him continue to feel a little bit more comfortable with moving forward.
And that was, again, without knowing everything the way they coach him,
right?
That was the one play that did stand out because he broke down in the pocket. There were 3 minutes remaining. They were trailing by 7. I think he perceived backside pressure. Now that was my sense watching the tape, and he left the throw to Jeffrey on the field on the inbreaker, and because he had time to make that throw. Yep. But you're right, that's a learning play.
Yeah, I think that's certainly one where you look, that he would certainly like to have back. But overall, I thought that we saw some really good things from Jalen in this game. The run game was not hitting to the level that they would have put. Miles Sanders had a solid game, but I thought the offensive line got some good movement up front in the run game. To me, one of my favorite elements of this game were all the different things they did off of that split zone flow action, Greg, where you have the tight, or just real quick to paint the picture for the listeners, where you have an inside zone run. So the offensive line blocking one direction, the tight end comes back and blocks the defensive end on the opposite side. That's been a staple of the Eagles run game for a long time.
That's a staple of every team that has a quarterback that can run that's in the shotgun. It's just inside zone.
Absolutely. So what I thought we saw early and often from the Eagles, we saw, they threw the orbit in there with it to hold the backside linebacker. Right. We saw the action off the screen. They tried giving the orbit over to Rager. That ended up in a 10-yard loss. But either way, I thought that they did some good things, to kind of sequence those plays, complement those plays. And that, to me, that's just a good example of just the creativity, especially in the run game. And hats off to Jeff Stoutland and Deuce Staley for putting that together. I thought it was another example of just some really good stuff from the Eagles game plan.
Yeah, and it's funny because leading up to the game, I thought there'd be a lot of misdirection elements, and particularly against this particular defense, which is a fast flow defense. This is a defense with a lot of speed. So I thought you'd see a lot of those misdirection type elements off basic plays. And we see that with a lot of teams in the league. It's just smart coaching. It's a good way to take a basic play and create indecision for the defense. You're trying to grab the eyes of defenders and create uncertainty.
Yeah, I think that's spot on in terms of what the goal is there. From a wide receiver standpoint, I thought we saw. So it was good to see Quez Watkins. I know, Greg, that you watched Quez Watkins in college. You saw that speed. You saw that game breaking ability. Him kind of making something out of nothing there, broken play essentially, and taking off down the left sideline. In his second career touch, pretty cool to see Quez Watkins, a 6th-round pick rookie, come through and make a play like that down the sideline.
No, and obviously, as we mentioned, that was a give-up play, and because Drake Kirkpatrick decided he was going to jump inside, it became a touchdown. But hey, you take those. But we definitely saw the speed, and again, he played over 20 snaps this week, so he's clearly in the minds of the coaching staff worthy of being out on the field now.
Yeah, I think that you're starting to see that speed, really kind of come to fruition. With a lot of young players, they're not always playing fast early on, but I think, you're starting to see that comfort level with Quez Watkins. Remember, he started the season off with an injury and was a little bit slow to bounce back from that, but certainly starting to feel a little bit more comfortable.
I got to tell you, too, and I know the numbers might not have reflected it,
Yeah.
but I thought Jalen Reagor looked explosive just watching him move in this game. I know he only had, 5 for 49. I mean, the numbers don't necessarily reflect that, oh, my God, he was unbelievable. But they did throw some vertical balls to him. I thought he just looked quicker in this game, kind of the way he looked in college.
And certainly on that screen that was on third and a mile, and he goes 23 yards.
Another give up play.
Yep.
Another give up play, and they got 23 yards, setting up the 4th and 6, and then ended up being a touchdown drive.
Ended up being a touchdown because on the very next play it was 4th and 6, and Hurts takes off, moves the chains, and then they keep moving down the field and end up scoring. But I thought we saw a little bit of giddy up there from Jalen Reagor. Let's go over to the defensive side. Actually, no, real quick. This is somewhat. I mean, it's not going to be breaking news for those that are listening to it, but the Eagles just announced that they have 3 Pro Bowl players. I hate Pro Bowlers, by the way. Pro Bowlers are guys that roll a ball down and knock some pins down.
I know.
Pro Bowl players got announced for the team this year. Jason Kelce being one of them. So you got Jason Kelce, the lone offensive lineman standing from the starting lineup to start the season. He got named to the Pro Bowl. Fletcher Cox named to the Pro Bowl. And then Brandon Graham, which is number one, is awesome because I'm so happy for BG. His first ever Pro Bowl, well deserved, and overdue a little bit with BG. But glad to see all 3 of those guys get named to the Pro Bowl. Real quickly, just on the offensive line before we move over to the defense, what did you think of Jordan Mailata? What did you think of some of the young guys that were playing up front for the Eagles in this game? Any takeaways?
I got to tell you, I wasn't studying them probably in the same detail you do, but overall, I felt like it was solid because I didn't come away going, wow, there were some really bad plays here. They looked like a pro offensive line, looked like an NFL offensive line. Now, there were some sacks, of course, and I think when you play the Cardinals, they do some really good things. They had a couple of stunts that were really effective. But, I mean, I think overall it was a solid performance.
Yeah, I thought that overall, Jordan Mailata continuing to just look more and more comfortable.
Yeah,
to me,
I would agree.
He is, especially in the run game. I mean, he is really fun to watch. I mean, just the way that he comes off the ball and is able to generate some movement. I thought he did a really good job. He's got multiple defenders on the ground in the game. And it's just overall, I mentioned it earlier, I thought the double teams worked really well in this game, whether it was Sayamalu and Kelce, whether it was Kelce and Herbig, whether it was Pryor and Herbig. I thought they got some really good movement against, albeit it's a banged up Arizona defensive line. They weren't running with all their horses either up front, but obviously the Eagles are not either. So it was good to just see the Eagles get some movement there along the offensive line. Miles Sanders, I thought was solid in this game.
I thought he ran hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the yards weren't there, but I think over the last month or so, he's been decisive and he's run hard.
Yeah, I think that we saw certainly some good things from Miles in this game.
The one play, it's funny. You talk about plays, maybe you'd love to have back, and this was not a terrible one by any stretch. But I mentioned Reagor, and the one play that really stood out to me was when you ran by Peterson on the post route on the second play of the second quarter.
Right.
You remember the play I'm talking
about?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Hurts made the right read because it was cover 4, but he just underthrew it. And I wonder if he would say, if you got him with truth serum, that because Golden drove back Sayamalu into the pocket as a looper on that TE stunt, I wonder if that impacted the throw because that ball was just a hair underthrown. If it was just out 2 more yards, that's a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. Actually, I'm glad that you brought that play up because that's one.
Reagor just ran right by Peterson. Now, Peterson's playing with outside technique because it is cover 4, but they had a nice route concept to eat up the safety to that side. I forget. It might have been Ertz or Goddard. I forget.
It was Goddard running the in breaker. They ran a little high-low concept in the middle of the field, which was nice in its own. I mean, that was a nice little 2-man concept, but working to beat quarters as a full field concept, I thought that worked really well.
Yeah, and it was one of those plays. I mean, obviously I saw it live on TV, but then when I was watching the tape today, I saw it. Man, he just ran right by Peterson Reagor. So that was one of the plays that made me think, man, he's starting to look more explosive, kind of the way he did in college.
Let's go over to the defensive side. And I thought, look, in the secondary, a lot of new names, right? We saw Michael Jacquet. We saw Kevin Seymour. We saw a lot of guys playing. Those guys play hard. Real quick, Greg, the defensive line, especially those three defensive tackles, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Malik Jackson, this was like one of their best overall games. I thought those guys were so disruptive, whether it was run game, pass game, they played with such great energy. I was really, really impressed by that trio in particular in this game.
Yeah, no, I think the D-line is playing at a really, really high level. And I think we expect that. And obviously that'll be a big factor this week as well. And we'll get to that. But I got to tell you, I was pretty impressed with some of the guys that, like I thought Michael Jacquet really battled. I mean, we can sit here and say he gave up the 44-yarder, I think it was, to Hopkins, and then the touchdown to Hopkins. But to me, and I think I mentioned him to you the first time he played. Remember I mentioned him to you?
Dallas. That was ironically against Dallas, correct.
That I saw something, because don't forget, this kid was a high school quarterback, went to Louisiana, played wide receiver his first 2 seasons, was switched to corner in his red shirt junior year. Then as a red shirt senior was all second team Sun Belt. And now he's playing in the NFL. And in his first start, and by the way, he played every snap. In his first start, he's playing right corner, and he's predominantly matching up to DeAndre Hopkins, because in the air raid, receivers usually play one side. It's not 100%. And Hopkins is 90% of the time lining up on the left side of the formation. So in his first NFL start, he gets DeAndre Hopkins. And I thought the kid battled. He's got length. He's got some movement. I mean, I wouldn't say that he's super fluid in his hips, but he's got length. He's a pretty good athlete. I was impressed with him.
I thought that he competed really well. And I thought here's the thing that stood out to me, both with him and with Kevon Seymour. There weren't blown coverages and missed assignments. It wasn't oh man, like these guys are just they're completely
no, not at all.
Fish out of water at this point. Even the play, it was the deep post to Hopkins. There was in the first half. Seymour made
that was actually a really good play by Seymour.
That was great,
recognizing it because it was cover 3, and then he overlapped the post because Epps jumped the crosser. It was a post-cross combination that everybody runs, and that's the way you teach it. If the safety is going to jump the crosser, then the backside corner, once that crosser disappears, he's got to overlap the post.
Yep.
And that was just DeAndre Hopkins being DeAndre Hopkins. Seymour did the right thing.
Yeah, I think that when you look at how a lot of corners have played that around the league, and even here in Philadelphia over the last few years, he played that as well as anybody. He just didn't have the giddy up to necessarily go and track it, but he got there right as the ball got there, and Hopkins just made a DeAndre Hopkins play. It was an outstanding play, outstanding catch. The catch.
No, it's funny to say that. I guess blown coverages, if you want to call them that. And they were not by the young guys. One was Mills on the Williams 42-yarder. And I understand why he blew it, but he technically blew it. And then the Edmonds 6-yard TD reception was also a tough deal, but Singleton kind of blew that.
Singleton got washed out. Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Because Edmonds came through the line of scrimmage.
That's tough.
And he just didn't recognize him. But quickly enough. But those are tough plays. The Mills play, Williams initially showed pass protection, so Mills figured, okay, he's going to block, and then he abandoned his responsibility. But for the most part, those young guys in the secondary, I thought they competed and they didn't make mistakes.
100% agree. It was great to see those guys compete at the level that they did. I thought the linebackers were flowing from sideline to sideline. The defensive line, as I mentioned, I thought was really impressive. Look, at the end of the day, the defense gave up 400 plus yards. The amount of points they gave up, not ideal. But
they also had a couple. They had the short field on the block.
Exactly.
I mean,
yes.
I don't think, in all honesty, and I know there were some big pass. I know that, but I would say that the Eagles' pressure and coverage approach, because they didn't blitz much, played to their personnel in the secondary. I thought the game plan was a strong one.
Yep.
And even though they gave up yards, Fran, I didn't come away thinking, oh my God, they're just ripped apart. I did not think it was a terrible performance despite the yardage.
I would agree with that. I definitely agree with what you said there. So let me ask you this now. Let's bring this now into this week against in a must-win game against the Dallas Cowboys. The Eagles need to win on Sunday. They need a little bit of help from Carolina as well to stay alive. But let's bring this into this matchup because I think it's interesting. It's obviously the second time that these two teams have met. Both teams very different than they were in Week 8.
Oh my God, where's Benvenuti when you need him?
Yeah, very, very different than they were in Week 8. So let's kind of get into this matchup and talk through it. We'll talk from an Eagles offense against Cowboys defense standpoint. The defense not playing particularly, not as poor as they were in the middle of the season. Obviously, they're not.
No, they're a little better right now.
A little bit better, And so I'm interested to get your thoughts on how you feel they will try and contain Jalen Hurts, knowing how they like to play, how they like to deploy their personnel. How do you view their potential game plan to limit Jalen Hurts in this matchup?
Well, that comes down and distance and situational football. I mean, this is a team that, I think they'll play a lot of zone. I think they'll play a lot of split safety. You'll certainly see some single high. Obviously, they do that. We don't know about Xavier Woods. He left the game this week with a chest injury, did not return. We don't know about Van Der Esch. He left the game, so we're speaking on a Monday night, Fran, so we don't know the answer to those questions at this point. But, I think that, we'll see how they match up to when the Eagles play 12 personnel. Eagles played a meaningful amount of 12 this week. Their 12 personnel normally, even though they're running the ball more, the big question is, will the Cowboys play with 5 D linemen? Because that's something they've done over the last month or so when they played against base personnel. They've played with 5 D linemen. Now, sometimes they even align Armstrong as almost a stack backer, but he's technically a D lineman. Yep. So that's something we've seen a lot of, and be curious to see if they do that. I think when you get to third down situations, I think they will put themselves in a position where it might not be an outright spy, but I think they'll put themselves in a situation where they either have an underneath lurk defender or they will play a robber coverage where they have a safety be a robber. I think they'll do that because Hurts has shown that he's going to make plays with his legs, second reaction plays leaving the pocket.
I think that when, going back, I studied their games against Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, Arizona and Kyler Murray, Seattle and Russell Wilson. I think that especially on third down, using that cover one robber or the cover one lurk, right. whether that's Xavier Woods or Darian Thompson, or if it's Jalen Smith, somebody, I feel like they're going to have somebody there in the middle of the field, kind of lurking and waiting to kind of track Jalen Hurts from sideline to sideline. That would be my guess, because I feel like when you looked at a lot of his biggest plays in this game, a lot of them came where Arizona wasn't in those kind of, the 5-man that touchdown, the touchdown run in the red zone on 1st and goal came on a 5-man pressure cover one, where the only guy that wasn't playing man to man was Budda Baker in the post. And he just kind of took off, took the green grass that was there, and was able to get into the end zone, broke the tackle, and got in. So I think that, if I had to guess, I would say that Dallas, if they're not playing zone coverage with eyes on the quarterback, they'll be playing with some kind of robber or alert player in the middle of the field.
And one thing I think you have to be aware of when you play them, and Jalen is still a young quarterback, and the Cowboys are good at this, is Jordan Lewis is a very good blitzer from the slot.
Yep.
And they use him that way. And there's a couple of tells, and I think you have to try to get them to show the tell. Because one thing, and I've learned this over the years from talking to coaches, very often, Fran, if let's say it's twins or trips, you have 2 receivers to one side or 3 receivers to one side. If you motion one of them across the formation and the slot corner does not go with him, very often he'll be blitzing.
Right. Yep.
That's a tell. Now, that's nothing's 100% in this league, but that's a tell. So if you're the Eagles, I would love to see them do that, so they get a sense, hey, is Lewis going to run across the formation, or is Lewis going to stay? In fact, Lewis had a sack this week on just that kind of play.
That's right.
The Niners motioned, I forget what receiver, but they were in twins to one side, 2 receivers to one side. They motioned one of them across the formation, and Jordan Lewis did not go with him. And he blitzed, and no one picked up Lewis, and he sacked Nick Mullins.
Yeah, I think that's something obviously that they have done against the Eagles over the last couple of years.
Oh, no, we saw them do it with he sacked Carson Wentz. Was it last year?
Yeah, it was last year. It was last year down in Dallas.
Yeah.
I think that's something certainly to keep an eye out for in this game. Talk about some of the matchups you expect out in the perimeter. Obviously, they're not a shadow team. Trayvon Diggs had 2 picks. Now, though. Yeah, he had 2 picks the last time these 2 teams played. So just thoughts overall on the personnel in the secondary and kind of status report on that group.
Well, they don't match up. So what you'll see is a Woozy at left corner. Diggs, if he's back, at full strength, he was the starter. He would play right corner. He rotated with Brown this week, probably because it was his first game back. So I assume he'll be the right corner this week. And as I said, Awuzie is the left corner. They're a high percentage nickel defense, Fran, as you know. I mean, they play about 70% of their defensive snaps at a nickel.
Yep.
And I would expect them to play a lot at a nickel because both Goddard and Ertz are really good receivers. And I would think that they'll play nickel even in normal down and distance situations. That's one thing I would expect.
When they do go, if they're in nickel and they do play man-to-man, if they're going to go with the one robber, who is their tight end matchup guy more often than not, off the top of your head?
Well, Lewis would play one of them.
Yep.
And then the other, then you get into it. If Woods is out, then you're dealing with Wilson and Thompson. I don't know how they would see that because it hasn't been that situation.
Right.
So, what's your sense? Do you remember Thompson? He's the Boise State kid.
He is the Boise State kid. Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember him. I did him coming out, but I can't remember exactly. Do you remember him well? I don't see him as a man-to-man defender on the tight end.
No, I mean, I think that honestly, looking at how the team is set up, he might end up having to be that guy. It might not be an ideal scenario for them, but I don't think that they want Smith one-on-one against tight end. They might put Van Der Esch at times would be my guess, but no, I think the way that they're playing, I think that it's probably a lean towards Thompson.
Yeah, I mean, or Wilson. I mean, it's one of the two.
Yeah.
First of all, we don't know if Van Der Esch goes, but I don't think Van Der Esch, to me, he's not a good matchup on either one of the Eagles' tight ends.
Yep. And then from a front standpoint, DeMarcus Lawrence, they bounce him back and forth between left and right end. It's not the same as it used to be in years past. Neville Gallimore, the young kid from Oklahoma.
He's flashed the last couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. He's done some nice things. I was going to ask you what you've seen from him. Rookie third-round pick, former teammate of Jalen Hurts at Oklahoma.
No, I mean, he's flashed. Again, I'm not studying him on every snap, obviously, but I've seen the Cowboys defense quite a bit over the last month or so, and he's showing up. He's got pretty good quickness. I liked him coming out of Oklahoma. Again, guys like that, I didn't think he's going to be Aaron Donald or anything like that. But he's got good quickness for his body type, and he's getting more and more snaps. He's starting now, and he's getting more and more snaps. And he can show some quickness and burst inside.
Now that I mention, I mean, between Neville Gallimore, he played with Jalen Hurts last year. You look at CeeDee Lamb, obviously played with Jalen Hurts last year in Oklahoma. Trayvon Diggs played with Jalen Hurts at Alabama. There's some ties there for Jalen Hurts and some.
Well, it's funny, but Oklahoma and Alabama guys, a lot of them usually do end up in the NFL.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there's a little bit of a pipeline there.
Between
those programs. Let's go over to the opposite side. Let's go to the Dallas offense, and as you mentioned. A little bit different situation with Ben DiNucci, a quarterback in week 8, as opposed to where they are with Andy Dalton over the last 5 weeks. He was signed this offseason to be the backup. He is now in there as a starter, obviously, with Dak Prescott out of the lineup. Interested to kind of get your thoughts on where this offense is with Andy Dalton under center.
To me, Dalton is a little bit of a cautious, risk-averse quarterback. He's not going to drive the ball down the field. He'll more often take short throws and checkdowns. Now, he'll push it down the field on orchestrated shot plays or designed vertical route concepts if they're there, but I don't think he's a natural turn-it-loose thrower. And again, you can't say, okay, he's not going to do that, but that's not the way he plays the position. Obviously, Elliott was out this week. I think he was close to playing, so I assume he'll be back this week. I don't think he's the same player he's been over the last number of years. So I think they almost have a little bit of a rotation now with Elliott and Pollard, much more so than we've seen in the past.
Yep.
Look, we know that the main issue in this game, once again, is going to be the Eagles D-line, because the Cowboys O-line, when you go from left to right, and these are not going to be household names, it's Knight, Williams, Looney, McGovern, and Steele. And this is where the Eagles must dominate once again.
Yeah, I mean, they want to get the ball out quickly, and that's been the case with Dak Prescott again. And they wanted to get the ball out fast, but especially with the issues they've got up front, that ball is going to get out of Andy Dalton's hand fast. So they've got to find ways to be able to disrupt the timing of the pass game, give the defensive line time to be able to get home, win those one-on-ones, and at times the defensive line is going to have to win extra quick to impact the quarterback as well. I think when you look at those matchups across the board, you like them. You like them in the Eagles' favor for sure,
without question. And once again, maybe I'm his number one, member in the fan club. Singleton, I thought, played well. I mean, we mentioned a play where, he just didn't see it. But overall, That kid plays with energy, competitiveness, athleticism. You know, he missed 2 snaps this week, so I guess, he's not ready. But he's been playing, I think, really, really well. The big question is who's going to play opposite. Slay will be back, so who's going to play opposite Slay?
It's a good question. Is it going to be Seymour or is it going to be is it going to be Jaquette? I mean, that's the big question. It'll be something interesting, certainly to follow here. Certainly Jaquette, a young player. Seymour, hasn't played in a couple of years, but he's a vet. He's played in this league, so it'll be interesting to see ultimately.
And the other factor too is we know Gallup got hurt. Now apparently the injury is not serious, so I imagine because the game's important that he'll go. But they've got good size at wide receiver, so It could well be Jaquette because Jaquette's over 6 feet.
Sure, yeah, I think that's something to certainly watch. Well, I'm sure. Look, we're recording this on Monday night. We might get a little bit of insight into that as the week goes on, but then again, maybe not. We'll see if they shed some light there on that situation. But talk real quickly. You talk about the Gallup injury, but CeeDee Lamb starting to produce. We saw him return that onside kick for a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's been producing since basically week 1 down there for Dallas. Overall thoughts just on Amari Cooper, the tight end Dalton Schultz, a part of the passing game as well. Just on those pass catchers for Dalton.
I don't know what to make of Amari Cooper. Now, this has been going on for years. He always ends up with good numbers. But when I watch the Cowboys on a weekly basis and their offense, I just don't feel like he's that guy that every week is one of those guys. I don't know what you feel. And I can't put my finger on it as to why. He's obviously very talented, when you just look at sheer talent with size and movement. But I just, I don't put him, when I look at the Julio Jones or the DeAndre Hopkins or the Devontae Adams.
Right.
I don't think he's in that conversation, but to me, by any stretch of the imagination, even though you'd look at his size and his movement and say he should be in that conversation.
What is that line of delineation there for you in your mind? When you're I'm not even saying like with Cooper, but with like the guys that make up that top shelf of receiver. Like, is there a benchmark that a guy has to clear in your mind for them to consider to be top shelf?
That's a tough question to answer because there are games in which he's not targeted a lot. And again, He can't throw it to himself. And now you get into how they run their offense and play design and all that. But there are games in which he's targeted a lot and other games he's targeted 4 times. Devontae Adams will never be targeted 4 times. Right. Julio Jones will not be targeted 4 times. DeAndre Hopkins won't be targeted 4 times. So I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And just because they have other good receivers, I don't know, but I just feel like given Cooper's talent level, he does not play as a dominant big-time receiver on a week-to-week basis. It may be through no fault of his own. Like I said, I can't answer that.
Well, maybe it's a big-picture conversation about the receiver position we can have this offseason. But
yeah.
Greg, thanks so much for joining us once again here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. We will talk to you next week.
All right, Fran, thanks.
Experience the fastest internet and more in a snap. With Xfinity XFi, you get the speed, coverage, control, and security you need for the ultimate in-home Wi-Fi experience. Xfinity, proud partner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Great stuff from Greg, who you can follow on Twitter just like I do, at Greg Cosell. And while you're at it, I'm at Eagles XOs. That's where I post all the podcasts I'm a part of and all of our X's and O's content that we produce here with Eagles Entertainment. And I really appreciate everybody that promotes this podcast on social media. That's one way to support this show, but the other way is to go on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, leave us a rating and leave us a comment. I wanted to give a shout out today to someone that did exactly that. Left a rating, left a question. PhillyFan-AFS left us a 5-star review on our Apple Podcast page saying, "Hi, Fran. Really enjoy your podcast. I also enjoy listening to the Journey to the Draft so I can get a better idea of all the college prospects. I was wondering if you have an episode about the evolution of offensive and defensive schemes. I love history, so I think it would be interesting to know where all the concepts we see today come from. Keep up the great work and go Birds." Thanks so much to Philly Fan for that question. Listen, throughout the offseason, I mentioned earlier, one of the things we like to do is not only do we talk Eagles all year long, but we love talking about X's and O's and strategy and different themes around the game all through the offseason. And one of the things that I do like to do as well is look back on specific schemes and things of that nature. So for sure, we will be doing those kinds of things this offseason. So make sure you stay subscribed throughout the course of January, February, March, April. We put stuff out all season long. We're not just once a week, but twice a week. So make sure you are tuned in right here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. We'll be breaking a lot of that stuff down. Philly fan, I'm glad that you asked specifically about that. And I would just give you one little suggestion. We just finished our conversation with Greg Cosell, and Greg was involved with a book that came out a handful of years ago. It might be close to 10 years ago now at this point already. But it was called The Games That Changed the Game. And it was a book that he wrote with Ron Jaworski. And it might give you a little bit of some insight into some of those schemes that are important now and we kind of take for granted. But there was a specific moment in time where that kind of flipped the fortune of the NFL moving forward. And so go check out that book. I'll give those guys a free little plug because it was one of my favorite books that I've read from an X's and O's standpoint. You can go check that out wherever books can be found. But Philly fan, great question. Special thanks to you and special thanks as well to Greg and all of you out there for your continued support of this show and all the rest of our podcasts here at Eagles Entertainment. All that being said, I think that'll do it. Another show in the books here on the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast, fueled by Gatorade. For everybody here at the Duffy House, I'm Fran Duffy. We'll talk to you next week. Give the gift of Eagles virtual youth clinics, now offering unique 2-day football and cheer programs live on December 29th and 30th. Register today at PhiladelphiaEagles.com/clinics.